What is going on, YouTube world? Jeff, Steve, Vinny, this is the Insert Revolution podcast, episode number 80. And Jeff has been so kind to join us tonight. First off, thank you. For a podcast that we try, at least at the beginning, and we still really intertwine and weave things together. We're very insert based. We're insert centric. The 90s, those early 2000s cards really spoke to us and have never left like our collecting vision. And so for you to join us tonight, it's an absolute honor. So I'll speak
thanks
for everyone.
For having me. I'm really glad to come and join you guys and talk about this stuff.
So give everybody a little synopsis of how you got into the card game, the card industry, for those who aren't aware.
Okay, I was a lifelong collector. I started when I was 5, and I still have the first pack of cards I opened up. And most complete sets for OPC and Topps baseball, and one hockey set or another from early 70s right up to present. I've just been a lifelong collector, and it was always a dream of mine. I wanted to be a professional athlete. Knocked on the door, almost made it. Had a few tryouts in the CFL, a couple of sniffs in the NFL, and a USFL tryout, which was kind of crazy. I never got my share of the dollar, by the way, just in case you're wondering. But I was always fascinated with cards and collecting, and I always wanted to. I just thought the greatest thing in the world would be to work for OPC or Topps when I grew up. And when I graduated from school, the timing was pretty good because I was still a hardcore collector. And there was a magazine that started in Canada called Canadian Sports Card Collector, which was kind of the equivalent of Canada's Beckett. And the timing was perfect for me to kind of step in as the first editor. Because I was a journalism grad, I had a sports background, I had pretty in-depth knowledge of the hobby, and from there, really networked a lot and met all the industry people. Did a lot of freelancing for some companies as a consultant and a cardback writer, and helping with checklists and everything. And Pinnacle hired me. I worked for Pinnacle on a freelance basis for a few years, and then literally 25 years ago next week, was my first day full-time in Dallas at Pinnacle, and it was the most wide-eyed, mind-blowing day I'd ever had in my life, which maybe we could get into in a little bit. But from Pinnacle hired me as a marketing hockey brand manager and developing all the hockey products, and then from there, when they found out I had a football background, they kind of threw more stuff at me. And then after Pinnacle's spectacular demise, which really is another story, I ended up at Collector's Edge. And I think at Collector's Edge, we did some really cool stuff. Edge graded, for example, with the first product with a graded card in a box, or actually in every pack. We did a lot of really, really cool things. And because we were such a small company, we were very versatile. And because we were developing products not only for Collector's Edge, but to be sold on Shop at Home TV, who owned us, we could really stretch the parameters. And, at Pinnacle, when you wanted to do something, there were 3 or 4 levels of management meetings. And Collector's Edge, there was like Alan Lewis and Ted Creeder and I, and we just did it. And after Collector's Edge left the landscape, and that was not, I think people that remember the hobby back then would probably think Collector's Edge went under. Wasn't at all the case. We were doing very well, but Shop at Home TV was actually sold to the company that owned the Food Network. So our midnight to 5 a.m. spot with Don West and Ken Golden, which was actually spoofed on Saturday Night Live a couple of times. I mean, that you've done something well when Saturday Night Live does a does a skit on your company products. So when that company was sold, the products they wanted to sell were completely different, and sports just vanished from the landscape there. So I ended up at Pacific as the vice president of marketing, developed all the products and did all the marketing and brand management. And when the NHL lockout canceled the 05 season, there was really nothing for us to do. And because of 9/11, I didn't have my green card yet, so I had to leave the United States. Nobody else was hiring because all of the card companies were shrinking. That was a very downsizing weak time as far as the hobby goes. So I couldn't land a job anywhere. And my dad had just passed away, and we have a family publishing business. So I came back home. I told my mom I'd run the company for 6 months and then leave again. And here we are 15 years later. And I stayed in the hobby I bought Canadian Sports Collector magazine, ran it for a few years, but the hobby had just, in the late 2000s, or as my son says, the zero-dies, the hobby had just collapsed to the point where something like that wasn't viable anymore. So I've stayed in the industry. I've set up as a dealer at tables. I'm still an avid collector. I do a lot of hobby writing. I write for sportscollectorsdaily.com now. Write a couple stories a week for them, and so I've kept my finger on the pulse, and it's amazing to see that you guys talk about the inserts of the 90s. It's amazing to see, like, that was the most innovative era in sports card history, and it's amazing that all of the stuff that we did is still being done now. Like there has not been really a fresh idea in 20 years, and that's not a criticism of anybody working in the hobby now. It's just that nobody's done anything that hasn't been done yet. I mean, right now when you buy a product, it's like, okay, here's your checklist. Here are the parallels, whatever color, 1 of 1. Here's the 1 of 5. Here's the 1 of 25. Here's a few insert sets. Here's some game used stuff, maybe game used autograph, but there hasn't really been anything. Technology and innovation is not driving the hobby right now. It's star power. It's Wander Franco. It's Patrick Mahomes. It's Cooper Cup is going to be the next big thing in football. Like you got, everybody is searching for the great for the great rookie, and that has always been a thing. And you go back to what drove the product in the 90s. You had the perfect combination of Gretzky, Jordan, Patrick Waugh, a multitude of quarterbacks, Elway, Marino, Favre, all of those guys. Those guys, the stars, drove the industry, and we're seeing the greatest amount of star power in sports now that we've seen in probably 25 years. So it's an exciting time to be a collector right now, and let's hope that baseball figures it out before they lose the hobby again. Because we can talk about the '94 strike and what happened to the hobby after that too, because that probably killed 40 to 50% of all sales in the sports card industry. And these guys are playing with fire, especially with the Fanatics deal just being done. I mean, how do you think Fanatics feels right now with them seeing what's going on? They're thinking they just made a multi-million-dollar mistake. So anyway, that was a really short question that deserved a short answer, and I just rambled on. So sorry about that.
No. On here, we have long dialogues and thought out answers and stuff of that nature. So if you think you went long, you probably didn't go long enough. So.
No, and to be honest, Dave, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. But Jeff, to be honest, we wanted to give you a platform to really give you an opportunity to really just tell us things. Yes, we have a few questions from a collector perspective. Well, actually, I shouldn't say we. I should say Dave and Vinny have questions. I play off of things based on responses and everything else. I don't come prepared to these things. But at the same time, we all three share a love of the same era of cards. Whether I'm a football guy, Vinny's a hockey guy. Dave just recently got back into hockey, but his main focus is that same era. And we always talk about how Pinnacle and Pacific have always been kind of at the tops of our list as it pertains to innovation in the card industry. But bottom line is giving you an opportunity to tell your side, being actually involved in the day-to-day stuff. I'm speaking for all of us, but it's extremely exciting for us just to give you the platform and the opportunity just to talk, because you have such a vast amount of information that spans decades. And, for us, we were kids in the 90s, so it's, although it was fun and intriguing and exciting for us then, it's even more intriguing and exciting for us now, because as kids, funds are limited and everything else. When you actually get to be an adult and, you look back on things. So I'm really looking forward just to letting you kind of dictate how this kind of goes, honestly.
Sure. And point me in a direction. And I know, again, we have no set format, so I'll just tell you stories if that's kind of what everyone wants to hear. And it's funny, I was at an auction, an auction pickup this weekend, and there was another guy picking some stuff up, and we got chatting, and the guy running the auction is an old friend, and he had mentioned to the other guy that I had worked at Pinnacle, because he started talking about the 1994 95 Pinnacle Sylvain Turgeon hockey card. And I don't know, are you guys familiar with that card and why it's so popular? Because there's if you look at that card in the top corner, there's a little kid sitting on his dad's lap, and the little kid is Patrick Kane, and that kid is really blown up, and it's funny because I remember us when we made that card. I mean, obviously we had no idea that, hey, that kid's going to turn out to be famous. Like, obviously we didn't know anything about that. Here, hey, what a cute kid in the corner. He's had this excitable look on his face, and so there's a real thing with photo approvals back then were really tricky. The NHLPA's rule was that you cannot have a picture on a card of anybody taken advantage of physically. And if you look at that card, if anybody kind of looks it up online, I mean, it's all over the internet. As far as, you just have to Google Pinnacle Sylvain Turgeon, a picture of that card will come up. So it's a horizontal card. And Sylvain Turgeon is getting can openered at the boards by Doug Bodger, and he's like about to wipe out right on his back. And it's like, how is this photo ever going to be approved? It's a great action photo. But it's like so uncomplimentary to Sylvain Turgeon for his card. But I guess whoever was doing the approvals that day was just in a hurry to red stamp or rubber stamp everything. So that card got made. It's a miracle that photo was approved. And sure enough, I shot a lot of games for the Sabres when I lived in St. Catharines, Ontario, which is right across the border from Buffalo. I was writing card backs for them, and also as a journalist, I was covering a team as a beat writer and doing the Canadian Sports Collector hockey features out of Buffalo. And it's funny because the at the odd, the dad had ice level season. Patrick Kane's dad had ice level season tickets, and he told me the story at the NHL draft in Columbus the year Patrick was drafted, and he had a high-end auto dealership. I think it was Audi. So he sold cars to all the players. The players are going to drive, not what I was driving at that point, an old Ford Taurus or something. And so he had a relationship with them. They had ice level tickets. He'd bring his son. His son was a big Pat LaFontaine fan, and so we were talking about that card at the draft in Columbus because we were part of the card show on the draft floor, and just amazing how just in the last year or two people have figured out that that's the Patrick Kane. I guess back in the day they would have labeled it XRC, their pre-rookie card or whatever, but but it's so cool to see that. And when I got to Pinnacle, our head designer was this guy named Tony Craich, who had come over from Upper Deck, and Tony is incredibly talented. And Tony used to tell us that whenever at Upper Deck, when they were making basketball cards, while he was still there, if there were empty seats in the background of the photo, the designers would all Photoshop pictures of their kids in the seats. So their kids were on all these cards, way in the background, not noticeable. But it was, you're always going to find little intricate little things like that. So that was kind of neat. But yeah, that Patrick Kane card is really probably the most sought after Pinnacle card as far as hockey goes right now on the market, and it's kind of unusual how for all the effort we put into everything, that one card that accidentally got printed with a photo that should not have been approved is what everybody's focusing on right now.
Yeah, because you have also in hoops too. They've got the Menendez brothers from 90, 91 hoops.
Yeah, is that a Jim Jackson? Is it a Jim Jackson card or
Mark Jackson?
Or Mark Jackson. Okay, I was thinking Jim Jackson because I watched Ohio State play yesterday. But yeah, it's funny when you get these little these little things that happen like that. So it's always cool to look back on that stuff.
And that card is listed on ComC. Sylvain Turgeon, young Patrick Kane in stands, PRC. $104.04.
A year ago, it was about $30, and that's how people have figured it out now. So that's pretty cool. And Patrick Kane's dad, when I was talking to him, he was really cool about it. He carries one in his pocket all the time, and just can't wait to show everybody. So it was really neat to go through that. The first day that I was at Pinnacle, which was kind of around March, I think, like March 25th-ish in 1997. That's the first day I had moved to Dallas, and I was down there full time. The one thing, there's a couple things I'll remember about that day, and I'm actually going to be writing a piece about it in Sports Collectors Daily in a couple weeks. But again, there were close to 300 employees, which is more people than my hometown. Everybody's got their shirts and ties and squeaky shoes, and there's the suits and the khaki. I was at the khaki level. I wasn't a full blown suit yet back then. And the first day, the HR person gave me a schedule of all these half-hour meetings I had to have with people, and then at 11 a.m. there was an executive meeting for our product, Certified Hockey, which was our most high end. Back then, the companies really divided their products into entry level and premium, and then super premium. It was sort of everybody followed that formula. Something like Score or Upper Deck Collector's Choice, that was your entry level stuff, and then Certified was our super premium product. So we had this board meeting, and we were at this fancy. We were in this fancy boardroom, and all these guys that I didn't know, and I was kind of thinking, should I just be the quiet, polite Canadian, or should I just like jump in head first? Because they hired me to know my opinion and to hear it. I'm not going to be a yes man, or I shouldn't even bother coming. So they're talking about what an exciting week it was, because on Wednesday, Certified Hockey releases, and I was like, wait a minute, it's already out. And they all kind of looked at me like, dog hears master's voice, if you remember that reference. And they're like, well, no, it goes live on Wednesday. And I said, well, I was at a show in Niagara Falls, New York last week, and I saw it on the floor. There was a guy selling a complete set of mirror golds of 97 Certified Hockey for 10 grand. And they looked at me like, stunned. And so anyway, the rest of the day was spent in meetings. And I didn't know this about Pinnacle, and probably nobody knew about this, but even people that worked there didn't know. But they had a guy like Pinnacle had 3 floors in a big office building, and there was this door that everybody just assumed was a janitor's closet or anything. Nobody, it was always locked. Nobody was allowed in there. It was just a random door, and it's probably where they keep the mop or the vacuum or something. And there was a guy that was an ex-FBI guy that sat in there, and he had these computer monitors, and he could log into anybody's computer to see what you were doing. And he was the security guy, and he was an investigator. So all of a sudden I got to meet him on my first day, where most people didn't even know that he existed. And what we had found out was that it's protocol with your licensors to send samples of all your cards. And one of the relationships we had asked for extra sets of everything, just because they said that they distributed to this, that, and the other thing. And so like we had the leagues and PAs and some of our vendors and some VIPs, there were a few sets that got out there. Well, this one outfit, and I won't name them, they had asked for extra cards, and they had a scam going on where they were taking complete parallel sets because they knew there was a market for them, and they were showing up at this Niagara Falls store. And there was a guy based in New Jersey called his name was Pat Sarma, and he was probably the world's biggest collector in the 90s. And Pat's ambition was to have every card ever made. And when the one of ones started coming, and he finally, things got too much for him in the late 90s, and he threw his hands in the air. But there was a guy that was a buyer specifically for him, and this guy made he made a 7-figure salary, and in the high 7 figures as a software designer. So we were assuming that this guy was buying these sets were being funneled there to be purchased for him. And so the next time we sent cards out, we kind of figured out who it was, and we the FBI guy marked the backs of the cards with invisible ink. And then the next Niagara Falls show, after our next product released, we had people go to the Niagara Falls show and take a look at the cards. Oh, can I see those? And then they shine the special light on it, and sure enough, there's a marking on it. And that was sort of my first introduction into, when you talk about products being backdoored or things, not being up to snuff. Pinnacle took that stuff very seriously, and so it was really interesting to be kind of caught in the middle of that on day one, and everything got sorted out. We changed the way we sent sample cards out for all of our sports, and that was it. And then what happened the rest of the day was 97. This is the 25th. This is, a lot of people haven't talked about this. They talk about the 75th anniversary of Jackie Robinson Day, but it's also the 25th anniversary of interleague games. The first interleague games were in 97, and Upper Deck at the time had just put out the first jersey cards, and I think that is, in the history of the industry, the most innovative thing ever done. You can talk about you can talk about some of the great products they've had over the years. I know Carvin Chung gets a lot of credit for his work there, but I mean, and not to take anything away from Carvin, because he's fantastic, but I mean, it was the perfect storm with the perfect product plus a LeBron James rookie. I mean, the timing was absolutely perfect for the product he put out with the content. Brilliant. It could not have been done better. But the thing is that whoever the guy was, and I don't know who there came up with it. If I ever run into Dennis May, I've got to ask him, like, who actually came up with the idea for the jersey card, because that's the most brilliant thing that ever happened. And I mean, it's still a staple of the hobby today. I mean, the autograph has been around forever, but game used jersey cards are nuts. So the first day I'm sitting in this office with Greg Bakicchio, who was one of our he was our marketing director, and Greg and I became very close friends and remain to this day. he said, he was telling me, like, like Upper Deck has done that. What do you have up your sleeve that can battle that? And I said, well, with the jersey card, you're only getting like a little tiny piece of jersey. Like, it doesn't really do anything for me, because you can get 5,000 pieces of cloth out of a hockey jersey, and probably 2,500 out of a football jersey. But I said, why don't we talk to NHL and Major League Baseball? Why don't we get a puck from every game and have a redemption card set across all of our 1997-98 hockey products, and give away a puck from every single game? And then in baseball, maybe we could give away a ball from a game used ball that was used in action in every interleague game for the first year of interleague baseball. And Greg's eyes lit up, and then he got on the phone while I was there with the execs and say, hey, I'm here with Jeff Morris. He's got this great idea. Let's do it. And like, they made that happen lightning fast. And it's the sad part is that when Pinnacle went bankrupt in 1998, we still had some redemption cards out there that unfortunately they were coming in as the company went bankrupt, and never got fulfilled. But it was kind of a cool thing to sort of like, wow, my first day at Pinnacle, we came up with this great idea, and I got in the middle of a sting operation, and it was a bit of an eye opener, as far as everything goes. So, but I mean, after the first day, things kind of calmed down a bit. But it was a wonderful, wonderful place to work with incredible people. The one thing that I really liked about Jerry Meyer was a real character. Very, if you took Dana Carvey doing Ross Perot, he could be Dana Carvey also doing Jerry Meyer. It was the same guy, except a trading card guy instead of a software salesman or whatever. And Jerry was this colorful, charismatic guy that was a real motivator. And we had these. We all worked on in cubes with small, like, you could see the cubes weren't like tall walls; they were just short. So we were in rows of three, facing rows of three, and they had set up artwork so that everybody in the building could sit at their desks and see the words "unexpected delight" on a different piece of art. So that was our thing. I mean, I know that Pinnacle's tagline for the public was "guaranteed scarce." That was on all our ads and all of our marketing material. But the unexpected delight thing was probably the biggest lesson I ever learned from Jerry Meyer, and it stayed with me everywhere I went, including to today in my media company. It's like his philosophy was, when you're doing something for somebody that works for you, or somebody who you work for, always exceed expectations. Give them unexpected delight. If they're expecting this, give them this plus. Give them a little more. When collectors are buying packs of cards, they're expecting 5 inserts. Give them 6. Always make it seem like, wow, that's unexpected. So unexpected delight seemed to be the one theme that really rang through Pinnacle, and it was something that really if you don't know about it, you just look at it and there's a sign, fine. But when you hear Jerry talking about it and explaining it, and then the sign resonates with you, it really motivated people to be their very best at that time. And again, like we did some fantastic stuff there, and just unfortunately, expectations, our corporate spending was not in line with the actual sales that we had. There were projections that weren't met. There were shenanigans and games being played with numbers, and finally the whole thing just collapsed. And it's sad, because I would love to see if Pinnacle would have survived with that team of people that we had, what we could be doing now.
During your time there, what would you say that your favorite insert that you may have had your fingerprints on?
That would be that's a no-brainer. That's Epics.
Okay.
And I don't know if you guys are familiar. Excuse me, I just got my throat's a little dry. You guys don't have an endorsement deal with Diet Coke or anything, do you? No,
No,
you don't have a
we
Pepsi deal that I'm wrecking, or a Diet Dr. Pepper deal. So I actually have one here. So Epix, I don't know if you can. I'm trying to get it so that the lights. Oh, there we go. So that's an Epix Wayne Gretzky Emerald moment. So when one of the big myths about that era was that Pinnacle and Donruss were two separate companies. That was a complete facade. So anytime we were all on the same floor and we all worked together. So anytime the guys from Beckett, 10 miles down the road, wanted to come and meet with the Donruss guys would leave our building in downtown Dallas, drive to Grand Prairie near the baseball stadium, and go to this fake office, or this office that was used for other things. And the Beckett guys would go meet with the Donruss team at this other location, not having no idea that we all worked together in Dallas. That any product Donruss did, they ran by us. Any product we did, they ran by them. Doug Goddard was a genius over there, and he worked with Tim Franz. They developed all the Donruss products. They had an incredible amount of success with an insert set called Fractal Matrix, and it was you have to be a math major, and my mom was a calculus teacher, and I'm like teetering on Menzel level. I'm a 136 IQ and very mathematical, and I could not figure this out at first glance. It's like, how the hell did you do this? And it took me a day to figure out sort of the x-axis and the y-axis and this and that, and it was like going to a next level trig or algebra exam. Like it was crazy. So everybody loved Fractal Matrix, and we got this thinking, and this is actually the honest to God truth. One of the guys on our product development team, Glenn Yap, who left us and went on to work for DirecTV, Glenn broke it down the best. He said, collectors right now are going nuts over stuff they don't understand. If they don't get it, they love it. And it's like, I don't know if that's true or not, but that seemed to be the thinking. So we wanted to have a multi-level cross product set. So Epix was something that was like, okay, there's 12 different levels. There's Epix is just, epic with an X to sound cool. So your epic game, your epic play, your epic season, and your epic moment. And from play to game to season to moment, it would become less rare. So play was the most common. And then instead of picking like blue, silver, and gold, or bronze, silver, and gold, we just randomly picked purple, orange, and green. So your green was the most rare, and moment was the most rare. So this card that I showed you, this Wayne Gretzky Epix Emerald moment, this is probably the most undervalued hockey card in the market right now. And it appeared in Zenith Hockey, which was the Dare to Tear product. For those of you not familiar with it, Zenith was a 5x7 card with that you had to rip open to get the other card, regular size card that was inside it. I think Topps is doing something like that now with regular cards that you tear open to get a tobacco size card. But again, this was a 90s innovation that it was brilliant. Brian Foy came up with this, and I remember we sat down and had lunch, and he showed me the idea, and I thought, oh my God, that's brilliant. And he said, what's great about it is that for every card that's torn, the untorn cards become more rare and more scarce and more valuable. And we intentionally put the Wayne Gretzky Emerald Moment card in that set, and only 9 of them made it into packs. So Beckett lists the set as less than 30. We put 9 into packs. There were 3 or 4 that the customer service department had in case somebody returned a damaged card or anything. We always had a handful of every card. I was given one on my way out the door as a thank you, because they knew this was the sort of most special card for hockey that I had a hand in. And so they gave me one as a thank you, so and then somebody came and bought the inventory from customer service. So even with that, there's probably a dozen in circulation, maybe at the most. And this card is only a $2,000 card, and it's like, if there's a Wayne Gretzky card, but it's not serial numbered. That's the thing. So because serial numbering was just coming into being at that point, and that Wayne Gretzky card, I saw one pop up on eBay maybe about 7 or 8 months ago, and it was in the $1,500 $2,000 range, and it's like wow, if people really realized what that actually was and they knew the actual number, I think that card would explode, because I don't think that there's a more scarce Wayne Gretzky card on the market. At least it was produced during his playing days. And since then, there's been so many. I mean, Upper Deck still uses Wayne Gretzky extensively in all of its products, and he still drives product. But and I know there have been one of ones and different things like that made. But that one card to me is the most special insert card. There are other special cards that we can get to too, but that's the one. That's the one card that really sticks out to me as that's our crown jewel as far as inserts go, because the Epics. The Epics concept wasn't just random math. It was this is meaningful, because this card, his Epics moment. It talks about the greatest moment of his career. The Epics game talks about a player's greatest game of his career. So if you're a fan of the sport, and I always see collectors as they're fans of the sport first, and collecting is an extension of being a fan. It helps create an emotional bridge between value aside, when you collect cards, it creates an emotional bridge between yourself and the player and the team, and I thought this was the best way to do it. Like, really focus on the greatest moments of a player's career, from their greatest play they ever made to the greatest season, the greatest game, the greatest moment. I thought that would give this set meaning, rather than just being, here's a random insert with fancy sparkly foil that is just another excuse to put all our star players in. Because back then inserts were in the 90s, insert cards were I mean, I'd watch people open packs up at shows, and they pull the inserts out and they just throw the rest in the garbage. Like that's all that people wanted. So you had to come up with something a little bit innovative, and Pinnacle did a great job with that, and Pacific did an exceptional job with some of the inserts they did as well. So yeah, as far as the best insert, that's hands down is the best one, I think. Most popular probably would have been our masks. Our goalie, again, I'm talking about hockey, not the other sports, but there was people love goalie masks, and we had a deal with iTech where we did an die-cut insert card of goalie masks, and I'll never forget the John Van Beesbrook Florida Panthers mask when that came out, because that was just absolutely sick. That was like the best mask I'd ever seen, and so that was one that really stood out and had legs too. So, but yeah, as far as inserts go, I mean, there were so many, but those are the memorable ones.
Your time at Pinnacle, was there ever a moment where you wanted to sort of push something through insert wise, and somebody said, yeah, you know what, that's something we just aren't ready to do?
No, I think that I had some pretty outside the box ideas, and I was able to pretty much everything. Pretty much everything they were at the time I was there. I think the people in the suits knew that that they were in trouble, and we didn't. So they wanted stuff that was way out there, outside the box, and so it was it I mean, we did crazy. We did crazy stuff like, especially with packaging, um, and and uh, uh, and it's funny because we really went all out, and Jerry had um, the directive came from him because he was seeing the fragrancing industry really going crazy with this high end packaging and how successful it was, and he kind of thought that it would work in our business. And here's the most frightening thing about Pinnacle. Um, when I got there, there were, I said close to 300 people working there. Maybe it was like 275 or 250, but it was, it was a lot of people. And I learned very quickly that Doug Goddard and I, when I got there, were the only two guys in the building that were serious collectors. We had a bunch of marketing people who liked sports that thought it was exciting and whatever, but they didn't grow up like obsessed with cards like Doug and I were, and I think that was a bit of a downfall because they didn't understand the mindset. And the one mistake that we made as a company, marketing wise, was, and I used to see this example brought up all the time, and I used to cringe about it because they used to compare trading cards to toothpaste. The trading card industry and the toothpaste industry, their sales were equal at that time in the mid 90s or whatever. So all of our marketing data and all of these guys that were making decisions were drawing comparisons to the two categories, and it was like, wait a minute, you don't buy toothpaste for the same reasons you buy baseball cards or football cards. You buy toothpaste because you have to brush your teeth every day. Cards are an impulse purchase. You buy cards because you're for a number of reasons. For me, it's because I want that emotional extension of being a fan. It's an extension of what I love in that sports. For some people, it was pure gambling. It was like, they're the people opening packs and looking for an autograph or an insert and just chucking the rest of the cards away, or they're looking for that prize rookie card. So, and you still have that today. I mean, if a Wander Franco PSA 10 is driving box sales, well, fine. But people are looking at collecting for different reasons, and they didn't really kind of get that. And a collectible and a consumable are two completely different things, and I don't think that we learned that as a company fast enough to save ourselves. And what the real thing with packaging was that when you look at Zenith, it had a kind of a rhombus or parallelogram shaped box that had a slope, and then Donruss had a product that was like a cardboard mailbox with a rounded and I can't remember the name of that product off the top of my head. But there were all these innovative packaging ideas, and then inside was a Pinnacle product. We debuted it with the WNBA, our first WNBA product, and it was sold in a can. Like yeah, there you go. So we I can't quite see that. Which one is that?
What is that? 7.
Who's the player on it?
Cal Ripken.
Oh, that's
of course,
nice.
Dave's going to have to come back. He obviously pushed the wrong button.
Yeah. So what we didn't know, like we just thought that, like, that's cool because our packaging became collectible. So I went on a trip and did a visit with some hobby shops, and learned a couple of things. The first thing was, when you work for Pinnacle and you go to a hobby shop, our guys always went overdressed. When you walk into a hobby shop with a suit and tie, you kind of it's condescending. Like you're going into a shop where there's probably like a big fat guy with mustard stains on his t-shirt and and it's like you can't walk into a shop dressed like that because everyone will think that you're like too arrogant, like so it's like, okay, so we'll wear a golf shirt and jeans when we go to visit a shop, and that's an upgrade anyway from sweatpants and a hoodie or whatever. And so um, I was in Detroit and I walked into this shop, and it was one of our best customers, and he said, "You know what my problem is with Pinnacle?" And I said, "What?" He says, "I can't stack anything." He says, "Look at all my tops products. Look at all my Fleer and Upper Deck products. They're all stacked neatly." He says, "Your stuff is crap. It's like I can only put one box out because if I stack it, it crushes each other or it tips over, or the cans take up so much space. It's like a box of 24 cans takes up the same as a case of something else, and it's like I can't stock your product." And it's like none of us at Pinnacle had even thought of that. And it's amazing until you kind of get out and go to a show and go to a shop and really hear what people selling, not just opening and buying your product, because they're always going to tell you, "Oh my God, this is amazing," because they want to kiss your butt because they might get something free. But the guys selling your product are going to give you what's real, because it's like their livelihood depends on whether they can flip your product for their 37 or 50% margin. And that was the one thing that really stood out to me at Pinnacle as an example of we just missed on some occasions. We put so much money into our technology, which was really good. I mean, at the retail level, not at the hobby level, but at the retail level, we were the #1 brand in America. The retail buyers loved our stuff. We sold the crap out of products at Target in that red section that they had. Stores in the Midwest like Meijer sold so much of our stuff. But at that level, at the hobby level, we struggled. We were at a disadvantage. Topps had a grandfather clause where they could use all the rookies, and so we would basically sell baseball cards with the odd rookie. But I mean, most of these guys had a Bowman card 2 or 3 years early, so we were kind of, that was a bit of an unfair advantage that Topps had at that time. And then for hockey, they had an unfair advantage because they had an exclusive with the World Junior tournament set. So there were a lot of the key rookies that they had a couple of years ahead of everyone else. So we were always playing catch up to Upper Deck, but at retail we made it work. But yeah, there were some gross oversights that. And then you talk about the overhead. We're in a skyscraper on the Dallas skyline with 3 floors, a huge name, and our overhead for the building alone was $1 million a month. And it's like how are we going to ever be able to and then going to Collector's Edge, where we were in a little industrial park with our little 3,000 square foot rundown little office. It's a little bit different, but the money wasn't wasn't well spent. But at the time those decisions were made, to get places like that, the money was rolling in because the sales were so high and the hobby hadn't kind of crashed yet. So hindsight's always 20/20. The baseball card strike decimated Pinnacle. Sales probably went down 40 to 50%. And people don't remember. They're talking about the 94-95 strike a lot, but hockey was out at the same time. The hockey lockout from 94-95 lasted. Well, that was the year the Rangers won the Cup, and it was in June or July when they won it because they delayed the season for so long, and it was a half season. So you're looking at a hobby that's missing 2 of its 4 major sports at the same time. So people got away from collecting. There was a lot of I don't want to say apathy, but there was a lot of discontent because people were like, "Why should I support these athletes? Look at what they're doing to me as a fan. Like they don't even care. They're too greedy." Whatever. People got turned away from it, and then they realized that, hey, this $5 bill instead of a pack of certified, I can go buy lunch. I can buy a hat for my favorite team. I can put money toward a video game because that's a fresh new thing. And so that was sort of the first death blow. And the problem is that the minimum guarantees that the licensors set were all based on 1990, 91, 92 sales, which were astronomical. When sales plummeted, the licensors didn't budge. And so instead of taking less money and lowering the guarantees, they just let everybody make more products. So instead of making 3 or 4 products, the manufacturers were making 7, 8, 9 products. If you look at everything that was out on the market in 1995, 96, the number of sets that were out for each sport are staggering, because every manufacturer, and there were like 5 manufacturers in, they're making 7, 8 boxes, maybe 9 of each sport. And so it just, and if you're a shop owner, how are you going to keep up with that? How are you going to keep inventory of everything? Like it's not like it was in 1991 or 92, where it was like there were 2 or 3 different products from each company. There was Upper Deck and maybe Upper Deck SP and maybe Collector's Choice and maybe Score and Pinnacle and maybe Select, Fleer and Fleer Ultra. Flair came out later, but if they kept it to that core, Topps had Topps Chrome, Topps Stadium Club, and Bowman and Topps. Like if they kept it to that group and lowered our minimum guarantees, I think all of the companies would have survived. But it was royalties that ended up killing the card companies, and the leagues and players association showed no loyalty to the companies, and I mean that history repeated itself, because everybody after Fanatics got that deal, everybody was shocked that they would just walk away from Topps after 70, 80 years, that they would walk away from all these licensees. Like look at everything that Panini has done for them, and well, okay, you're going to give their license to Fanatics. I think Fanatics will do a fantastic job with it, don't get me wrong, but it was like there seemed to be no problem for the leagues and the players associations to walk away from their licenses and give it to somebody that they thought could do a better job. So yeah, there's no loyalty at all. So that kind of went all over the place.
That's quite fine. This is the podcast to do that. It's literally like a spin the wheel, make the deal. We're everywhere, so you're fitting in perfectly. Tell us about Pinnacle. I don't want to say the dying month, but when you sort of saw the writing was on the wall there, and like the downfall of Pinnacle for yourself.
It was like in stages, but I remember we went through about a 3-month period where we had a new CFO every month, and I remember Greg Bakikio telling me that he pulled me into his office and he said, "Listen, I know you're here on a work visa. You don't have your green card yet." He said, "When you see CFOs leaving in a revolving door," he said, "get ready to put the parachute on and jump, because that's probably the most telling sign in any business that you work for. If you see a revolving door in that position, it's not good." And that was sort of the first heads up that I had, but I didn't really want to believe it. I mean, it was like I loved living in Dallas and working there, and I guess I was in a bit of denial. When at the NHL All-Star Fan Fest in Vancouver in 1998, it was January 98, and it was funny because there were a lot of parallel comparisons made, because Titanic had just come out with Leonardo DiCaprio and I don't know, Kate Winslet maybe in that movie, I can't remember now. But Titanic was out, and while we were in Dallas at the trade show, Lori Goldberg, who was our VP of Public Relations, and Lori is probably one of the favorite people I've ever worked with, and she was absolutely a genius. She was the one that got Inside WA cans put under the seats at every seat in the Rosie O'Donnell show. If you remember Seinfeld, George had a Score baseball poster above his bed. That was Lori's doing. Like she got us into USA Today, and like constantly, she was a genius. And she went from Pinnacle to the Cartoon Network, and then she worked for Larry King, and she was She had been with TLC for a long time, and Shark Week was her thing, and she recently left there, and we're still in touch. But Lori came up to me at that show, and she said, "Listen, there's some stuff going on in Dallas I need to tell you about." And I said, "What's that?" And she said, "As we're speaking, there's probably about 100 people being let go, being laid off, and there's a downsizing going on." So that was a bit of a telling sign. But then again, I thought, we waste so much money in that company. Maybe it's time somebody figured it out, and we probably have out of 200 and some people, we probably could do this whole company with 50. There were a lot of layer jobs where we didn't need that. So that was a bit of a warning sign. And then I was at the NHL draft in 1998 in Buffalo, and so I had two young children under the age of 4, and my now ex-wife and we would fly to Toronto. I would drive them to my ex-in-laws' place. They lived up in a little town north of Ottawa called Petawawa. It's a military town. And if you've ever seen the TV show Letterkenny, it was like walking right into an episode, because it was Letterkenny's actually the place it's based on is only a few miles away from there. And so I would drop them off, and then I drove back to Buffalo, because Buffalo and Toronto are like an hour and a half apart. And so I'm at the NHL draft, and I'm staying in this cheapest motel I could find, because I knew the company was struggling. So I'm at a Motel 6 or something like that. Nothing nice. And go to get gas, and at night, I got there in the morning, and because I left at crazy o'clock, and I got to Buffalo. I went to fill up. I had a Pinnacle American Express card, which remains. I still have it. It's when people say, "What's your favorite Pinnacle card?" It's my American Express Pinnacle card that got rejected. I'm on my own, and I'm using my Pinnacle American Express card to get gas. And the gas station attendant says, "Your card's declined." And I'm like, "It's a company Amex. It can't be." It says, "Your card's declined, and it says for you to come in the office." So I come into their office, and I'm looking at USA Today on the rack, and there's a front page story on US Today. Baseball card company declares bankruptcy. And apparently Pinnacle was like $300 million in debt. And that's how I found out, because I was trying to get gas. Now, the really crazy thing is, because I was a Canadian citizen, I had not yet qualified to get an American credit card. So every 15-year-old kid in our neighborhood had a Discover card. And because I was considered brand new, I hadn't established credit in the United States yet, I couldn't get a credit card. So I'm stuck with no American Express card, no personal credit card. And it's like I had $40 cash with me. So it's like, okay, so I paid for my gas back when gas wasn't that expensive. And I bought a muffin and a Diet Coke or something. And then there was a friend of mine from St. Catharines I ran into. It's like, "Hey, dude, my company credit card is rejected. I think our company's bankrupt. Can I stay on your couch tonight?" "Yeah, sure." So I stayed on his couch for a couple nights, and then he gave me some money to drive to get back to my parents' house. And I went to visit my parents, and they gave me $100 so that I could, get gas and get to the airport and get home. And that was sort of the reality. And then after that, it was just there were very few people left. And in fact, that was in June. By July, August, there were 7 of us in the building. And they had to keep a core of 1 person in every department, so that if somebody came through to buy the company, there was a skeleton staff in place that could be management. So I was the kind of director of marketing, brand management, whatever then. So I had to punch in. I had to go in there from 9 to 5 every day, and just sit there. And I mean, the internet wasn't even a thing yet. And like it wasn't like now. Now if you're sitting in an office from 9 to 5 and you have a computer with the internet, you can entertain yourself. Back then, there was nothing. I was bored out of my mind. So I'm going to tell you a couple stories about the end. So we're sitting there, and the phone rings, and we had a person answering the phones, and anything that sounded like marketing or whatever, it got kicked up to me. So I get a call, and the girl that was answering the phone said, "There's a guy from the media that wants to talk to you," and I'm like, "Oh, okay. I don't know what this is going to be about." I get on the phone, and it's John Stossel. What was his show? Nightline, Dateline. It wasn't 60 Minutes. It was the other one.
2020.
What's that?
2020.
2020. Okay, yeah. So it's like he's on the phone, and I'm like, oh crap, he's gonna be grilling me about Pinnacle and whatever. But it wasn't about that at all. He says, oh, hi. He was really really nice, and we just chatted for a little bit, and he says, listen, the reason I'm calling you is because I wanted to get a comment or an interview with somebody, a sports card industry executive. And I'm thinking, oh my God, this is going to go so horribly, because he's going to ask us about how many people's lives Pinnacle ruined or something. I can just see this going south. And he said, yeah, so like you guys make baseball cards, right? And I was like, yeah, well, yeah, we've made baseball cards for years. And he said, well, the umpires the umpires union is suing Major League Baseball because they want a percentage of the royalty, because umpires are pictured on all the cards. So the Major League umpires want a piece of the royalty action. And I was just like, oh, I was so relieved, because I thought it was going to be something really, really bad that I was going to, when John Stossel calls you, it can't be a good day. It's like when Dr. Phil says, hey, will you come on my show? Like that's not going to go well. And you're going to have like angry trailer park women throwing tomatoes at you or something. Like it's just not going to happen. So I said, well, John, I can't really help you, because actually our company is in the midst of shutting down and being sold. But hey, my buddy Rich Bradley over at Fleer, he'd love to talk to you. And I gave him Rich's number. I never asked Rich. We've kept in touch. I've never asked him all these years whether John Stossel actually called him or not. I just, it was something that always kind of escaped my mind. But that was a big reality moment. That was an epics moment as far as Pinnacle goes. And then we had 3 floors, so I was on an entire floor by myself. And at this point, we had sold the floor, or the building had rented the floor to another company. So they asked me to move upstairs. So I'm carrying boxes up the elevator. Meanwhile, the new tenant of the 14th floor was moving in. And we were passing each other in the elevators, and I was helping him carry boxes and whatever, and chatting with him. And he was this guy, a younger guy that was really, really nice guy. And he had like sweatpants and high top Converse and an Indiana basketball T-shirt on. So yeah, Mark Cuban moved into the Pinnacle building, because he was starting broadcast.com. And within a couple of weeks, the Pinnacle sign was taken off the building, and broadcast.com was put in. And if I ever meet Mark Cuban, I doubt if he'd even remember. Hey, remember me? I held the elevator for you 3 or 4 times on this random day in 1998. Like, I'm sure he wouldn't remember it. But I remember chatting, and I remember him telling me the idea that, hey, me and my buddy are big Indiana basketball fans, so we started this company on the internet so that you could listen to whatever radio station, so that me and my friend, we can listen to all the Hoosiers games, because they lived in San Francisco or whatever. I don't know how he ended up in Dallas, but and then he sold. You talk about somebody with a Midas touch for timing. Sold his company for $1 billion, or $1.5 billion to Yahoo. If he would have held on to it for 6 months, he probably wouldn't have got more than $5 million for it. But the timing was everything. So that was kind of cool. I got to hold the elevator door open for Mark Cuban a few times, and that was it. But at the end in Pinnacle, this is another really funny story. I worked with this guy named Eric T. Arena, who's I think the last I heard is a player agent. for baseball now. And Eric had this gift. And again, we were clowning around, and he would just grab a puck or a stick blade or a football or something, and he'd grab a Sharpie, and he could look at an autograph and he could forge it perfectly. So it was like, it was a joke at Pinnacle that we had all this random stuff like hockey sticks signed by Babe Ruth and silver Sharpie. Like we had all this crazy stuff because Eric, like, it was like everybody has a stupid party trick that they can do, and Eric's was he could pull off about 10 or 15 autographs perfectly, and it was just a gift that he had. So when we were going through bankruptcy, there was this company called Nightingale that took the company over, and these guys were like, they'd walk to your. I was still in a cube at this point, even though I was the only guy on the floor, and they'd walk up and they'd look at the picture of me and my kids on my desk and saying, "Is this your frame or is this the company's?" So like, no, it's my frame. It's my picture of my kids. It's like I brought it from home. What about this? What about this radio? Well, no, that's my radio. What about these CDs that you put in your radio? Well, yeah, these are mine too. Like they were going through everything. So Eric, to play a prank on them, started signing all these items and leaving them, planting them around the office, and then we would sit there and watch, and it's like they would excuse me, they would find a Joe DiMaggio puck or something like that, and they'd be like, "Oh, check this out, what do you think that's worth?" I don't know. They pull their notebook out and they're writing down and they're like taking pictures of it, and it's like we were howling laughing at whatever, and I don't know whatever happened with this stuff, but it was when you're going through something like that, you always look for little fun things, and then one of the number one hit songs that summer was "Closing Time" by Semisonic. So whenever "Closing Time" came on the radio, of course we'd get the intercom and we hold the phone up to the speaker and we crank up "Closing Time," so we were trying to like just amuse ourselves and have some fun, but yeah, I haven't seen or spoken to Eric in like 30 years, but if I do run into him again, I mean, that's one story we'll probably reflect on, because to prank these guys into thinking that there were like, Babe Ruth had Babe Ruth must have had a silver Sharpie when he was walking around in like 1925. I mean, how else would he sign a curved fiberglass hockey stick blade? Like just crazy. So yeah, those were some of the interesting memories that happened at the end of Pinnacle.
I do have a random question for you, Jeff. And
sure,
I live in North Texas, so I know it's kind of hard to believe with all the Bronco stuff behind me, but I live in North Texas.
Hey, you can't see, but I'm looking at my life-size Peyton Manning Broncos cutout now. So
love it.
Now, are you in Frisco or Denton, or whereabouts are you? Salina?
I am actually east of Denton is where I live.
Okay.
So and you working in the DFW area for as long as what you have, you know your way around. I'm
so
sure.
Are you in Frisco?
No, I'm actually in a town called Aubrey. It's between Denton and McKinney.
Yeah. So. Yeah, because I was in Frisco for all that time, and 5,000 people when I moved to Frisco, and now there's 150,000. Like, it's insane.
I think it's more than that nowadays.
Yeah.
But that's what I wanted to ask. Where was the Pinnacle office located?
We were Woodall Rogers Tower, right on the basically downtown. Do you know where the bar, the Velvet Elvis, was, or maybe still is? We were right across the street from that, and the Velvet Elvis had actually been a brothel back in the day, and they turned it into a bar, and of course all the artwork was Velvet Elvis's. And we walked in for lunch one day, and Tommy Lasorda was sitting there with somebody, and Leanne Rimes was sitting there with somebody, and it's like, this is so cool. Like it was really neat. But we were downtown, and where the new arena is. Well, I mean, the new arena, it's not new anymore, but I mean, because it's probably 20 years old now, American Airlines Center. But it's basically we would have overlooked that, and one side of the building overlooked the grassy knoll, and I was fascinated with that, because when you see it, and you would know because you've been there a lot of times, but when you see it in the films and on TV, and then you see it in person, it's only like the whole area is only like 100 feet long. It makes it seem like this stretch goes on for miles and miles. And so I used to really love to prank Texans because they knew so nothing about Canada. Y'all got McDonald's up there, and it's like, oh yeah, but it's different. Like we got McSeal and McCaribou and stuff like that. And really, that's gross. No, it's really good. You got to try. McCaribou kind of tastes like chicken. Seal is, you guys got fillet of fish here. We got McSeal. And so I was always playing jokes on them, and then one day I was telling them about how Canada was on a metric clock, where it was like 100 minutes in an hour, but 10 hours in a day, and our calendar was different because it was 10 days in a week, and they believe everything because they were like, why would you make stuff like that up? The first day that I moved there, my neighbor Randy came over, and Randy's the nicest guy in the world, and remember in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, Rick Moranis had like suspended with the magnifying glass looking at the grass. He was like that looking for weeds. He wanted his front lawn to be a putting. So he was obsessed on his hands and knees with a little weed killer spray and fingernail clippers. And he comes over, and the first day I'm there, and our grass is a mess because our house hadn't been lived in 2 months. And he was like, I was fixing to cut y'all's grass, but my lawnmower done got broked up. And I was like, what? Honey, get me the Rosetta Stone, Texas book. I don't understand this guy, and so that was kind of funny, but I can't remember where I was going with this now, but yeah, it was a real culture thing. Oh yeah, I was just talking about making fun of the people in the office, and yeah, we had a lot of things we did to prank them and tell them things about Canada, and it was it kind of made it fun, but because they just didn't know anything.
Well, on the flip side,
I mean the people.
Sorry, Jeff, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
My first trip to San Francisco for work. Obviously, younger people than I at the time. Not that I'm extremely old by any stretch of the imagination. They had the nerve to ask me where I parked my horse because they knew I was from Texas, and they were serious. They were serious, and it's one of those in which I find it humorous. You being from Canada talking about us crazy Texans, and to a degree, it's that Southern hospitality. Usually, will believe a lot of what people will say. I seriously thought they were joking with me about where I parked my horse. When you go to work, where do you park your horse? I'm going, no, I live in the city and I drive a car and I park in a parking lot in a parking space at a building. What? You don't ride a horse? Guys, I think you watch too much TV.
Yeah, exactly.
But they were dead serious. Dead serious, and it was the most awkward exchange in that situation I think I've ever experienced, because I'm seriously thinking, okay, I kind of oversee these people. Now it makes me wonder what were our hiring practices at that time for these individuals to think that because I live in Texas, I ride a horse to work.
Well, I never got asked if I lived in an igloo ever, but I was waiting for that one, but it never happened. But yeah, it just amazing people. We had a Christmas party in '97, and there were some musicians that worked in our company, and they put a band together, and they rehearsed like a couple of nights a week after work for 3 or 4 months, and then at our Christmas party, they got up and played a few sets. And just to give you an idea, there was a woman named Cynthia Herndon that worked in our collectibles department that had been Stevie Ray Vaughan's backup singer. We had a guy named John Cable that was in Nitty Gritty Nitty Gritty Dirt Band as a guitar player, and Brad. I can't remember Brad's last name. I'm drawing a blank. Brad Bartlett was the Pointer Sisters drummer. We had another guy named Dave Hicks who was in a Christian band and was their keyboard player and was amazing. And then we had another guy that went to University of Texas on a music scholarship and was a guitar player. And they put a band together, and they had this thing. What are we going to call our band? And you being in Texas, you'd appreciate this because whenever we had cleaners that came every night in our office, and they were Mexican. So if we wanted anything thrown out in the trash, we had to write basura on it in big letters, which is trash in Spanish. And so they're all like, "What are we going to call our band? What are we going to call our band?" And it's like basura. I mean, what else? What else are you going to call it? So they gave they played this concert at our Christmas party. We were in a big hotel ballroom downtown, and I don't think I've ever been to a concert that good in my life. And it was funny because Michael Cleary, who was our CEO, and Michael was an incredibly nice guy, and nice to the point where anybody who was laid off, he turned one of the areas of the office into a job search center. So anybody who had been laid off could still come into the building and work on their resume, get coaching on their resume, use the printers and the computer for job searching purposes. Like, he really went out of his way to try to take care of everybody. And I remember Michael looking at me and saying like, that was incredible. He says, if only we were as talented at running the company as we are at putting a band together. You know, it was kind of a joke, but yeah, well, just one of those things where you know, you look at this cross section of people we had, and everybody there was gifted in one way or another. And it was a really, and it's hard to imagine that, you know, I was only there 2 years in the building. You know, I'd worked with these people for a long time, but it was like that 2 years had more impact on my life than anywhere I'd ever worked. I think it was, you know, I learned so much. I mean, I had a headache every day. I learned so much when I come home. So that was, can I tell you about another special Pinnacle card? I just was, so there was this is, okay, I'm going to go back vintage on you. In Canada, in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, there were things called Beehive Photos. And what they were, they kind of looked like this. This is one from the 1930s. It's a Toronto Maple Leaf. Or no, sorry, that's Bobby Bauer from the Boston Bruins, probably 1950-ish. There was a second batch. This is Jacques Plante from the Montreal Canadiens, and then the third group was a wood grain border. This is Ron Ellis in his rookie year. Ron Ellis was a big star with the Leafs back in the 60s and 70s. And Beehive is a brand of corn syrup in Canada. And in Canada, corn syrup is like a condiment as much as it is used in baking, whereas in the United States, it's only a baking product. But in Canada, you'd have, like, you know, it's 30 below all winter, so you'd have like hot oatmeal or something like that, or cream of wheat or something like that for breakfast, and then you pour Beehive corn syrup on it, or you put it on your cereal. Like it was a staple. And when you bought Beehive syrup, you could tear the label off, and there was an offer that you could send your label and $1 for postage or $0.25 for postage, I don't know what it was, to the company, and then you could tell them what player you wanted, and they would send you back a hockey photo. So in the years before there were hockey cards, this was what my dad collected. These were my dad's Beehive photos. My dad and my uncle had them. Like anybody that grew up in the 30s and 40s and 50s had these, and they're still extremely popular. So I went to one of our board meetings, and I sat down and talked with Greg. I talked to Tom Farrell about it. Tom works with Upper Deck Authenticated now, and he was working with us in Pinnacle. And so it was like, I want to resurrect this, because I think the hockey market will go bananas for this, because these Beehive photos are still so popular. Mm-hmm. So while we were doing this, while I was planning this, and this was only about a month into being at Pinnacle, April 15th, 1997 came and went. And that, of course, was the 50th anniversary of Jackie Robinson playing in the NHL, or playing in Major League Baseball. But somebody that I worked with asked me, who's the first black player in the NHL? I said, well, it's a guy named Willie O'Ree. He only played, a handful of games his first year, and then a couple of years later, he played 20 or 30 games. He didn't have a long career, but he was the first. He was the first black player in the NHL. He broke the color barrier, I think, at 56 or somewhere around there, 58 maybe. Yeah, I think it was 58. And so I did some research. There was there were catalogs back then because we didn't have internet databases yet. At this point in my life, I had never even been on the internet, and because it was 1997, the internet was brand new, and I found out that there'd never been a Willie O'Ree card made. So it's like, okay, not only are we going to resurrect Beehive and make it as if this card set continued and became a card set, but we can put Willie O'Ree's actual rookie card in it. Of all the things I'm proud about at Pinnacle, it's that we made this card, and this is an autograph Willie O'Ree card. And the Boston Bruins just retired Willie's number this season back. It was in February, so it was last month. Or no, it was January. It was on the anniversary of him breaking the color barrier. So that was the first ever Willie O'Ree card. And I got to call Willie O'Ree and I talked to him several times. He didn't even know he'd never had a hockey card made. So we put together this agreement to have him as one of the showcase players in our Beehive hockey product. And now there have been 200 or 300 Willie O'Ree cards made, but to be able to have made his first card is that's something really, really special. I'll always hold on to. And Willie's a really incredible, dynamic guy, and getting to know him was probably the most special thing that ever happened at Pinnacle, as far as I'm concerned. It was just anywhere you guys work, you probably have the same thing. It's like you don't remember so much what you do, but the relationships you made along the way. And there were some crazy moments, like when Charles Woodson was a rookie in the NFL, and we were doing an autograph deal with him, and his marketing agent, he had signed, instead of signing with a regular agent, he signed with Puff Daddy to be his marketing guy. So it's like, he wasn't P. Diddy yet or whatever. He was. So we're on this call with him, and they're like, we don't even know what to call him. Do you call him Puff or Mr. Daddy or whatever? So one of the guys on the call said, well, what are we supposed to call you? He says, oh, just call me Sean. It was kind of funny, but yeah. And then I was telling you about the Vancouver show. There's a goalie from the NHL named Ed Mio. I don't know if you remember Ed Mio or not. He played. He's an agent now, and Ed Mio played in the WHA with Wayne Gretzky. And when they showed up in Edmonton, they were a package deal. It was like both of those guys ended up in Edmonton together. And Ed Mio became an agent and did a lot of work with Gretzky. So Ed Mio comes to our booth, and I'm chatting with him, and he's got two of Gretzky's kids, Ty, and I can't remember the other one, but one of them ended up being a pretty big time baseball player, and the other one actually played quarterback with John Elway's kid in high school. And Ed Mio's got a call, and he's like, oh, I really got to take this. Can you watch Gretzky's kids for me for a minute? And he takes off, and I'm sitting there with these two 8-year-old kids that are Gretzky's kids, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm babysitting Wayne Gretzky's kids. This is like the coolest thing that's ever happened. And so you just remember little moments like that, and you meet some people, and you realize that when I worked at Collector's Edge, we had a booth at the National with uncut sheets of some of our really more dynamic foil insert cards, and there was this guy looking at them and examining and spending like about a half an hour looking at an uncut sheet. And I finally walked over. I was busy with other people, and then I finally walked over and just said hi and whatever. And it was Spike Lee, and Spike Lee's looking at our stuff for like half an hour, and I'm like, oh my god, this is like so cool. I'm sitting here talking football with Spike Lee. Like it just everything seems so random in that business, but it was like, and I'm not a guy that like gets excited and jacked up about meeting celebrities and everything, but I just think it's so fascinating that these people are so, you know, they're universally known, and because they're collectors, it brings everybody back into an even level. Like Spike Lee gets just as excited opening a pack of cards as the next guy. I remember when I was at Pacific, this agent called, said his client was doing a show in Seattle and loved Pacific football cards and wanted to tour the company, and kept calling him Scott, and I had no idea who Scott was, and it was Carrot Top. And Carrot Top is a huge NFL fan and collector, and he's got this like traveling weight room in his bus. The guy's like jacked and ripped like you wouldn't believe, and just loves football cards. And so when you meet people like that, it makes you realize it doesn't matter how rich or famous anybody is. Anybody is famous. At Pacific, BJ Thomas, you'd know him from singing at the Stars games. He used to sing the anthem all the time in Dallas. But, you know, BJ Thomas was a big country superstar in the 1970s. He used to phone our office every week wanting to talk to the customer service department because he just bought a box of cards, and card number 410 has a little ding in the corner. Can I return it and whatever? And then this girl, Autumn, who was about 19 years old, who answered our phones, would come over and say, there's some guy on the phone and says he's famous. His name's BJ Thomas. And I'm like, what? That's so cool. And he is famous. And so yeah, there were all these little brushes with different people that were, you know, you're not awestruck by it, but it's just fun, you know, when you have run-ins like that. So it was kind of cool.
Well, when you put things like that, as we all know, the hobby is still at a boom. It's still, you know, just running rampant. And everybody, for whatever reason, thinks that these athletes and movie stars or famous individuals are coming out of the woodwork. And, you know, being in the industry for as long as what you were, to put that into perspective, that this isn't anything new. We always talk about on the show that a lot of things that we're experiencing, we're seeing now, they've been around for a long time. But until you have somebody who's been in the business or in the hobby for as long as what you have, being in the 90s, you can put things in different perspective. You know, it's not like this happened overnight, that all these star athletes and movie stars and stuff have been collecting cards. This has been ongoing ever since cards creation back in the 50s and into the 30s and everything else. This isn't anything new.
Well, even think of the Mookie Ball from the '86 World Series. How many celebrities have owned that ball through the years, or other famous pieces of memorabilia like the Honus Wagner T206 that Gretzky and McNall and John Candy. I think John Candy was involved in that transaction too, and it's just, so you get people, and I think when you get people like that, it brings a different level of light onto the hobby. It seems, it makes it just seem so much cooler when somebody famous you know, dips their toe into the waters of sports collectibles, and so I think it legitimizes it for everybody else, you know, because everybody always like, my biggest worry as a collector in high school was like you know, you collect cards up until you're about 12 or 13, and then if you still do, you get made fun of. And I kept doing it, and I didn't care what anybody said. I was the quarterback of the school football team, and I was the point guard of the basketball team, and like I was comfortable being a card collector, and I didn't really care what anybody said or thought. And I'm glad I had that attitude, because so many of my friends going, oh man, I quit just when the Gretzky rookie came out. I wish I had some of them. Well, I do, because I kept collecting, you know, and so for whatever reason you leave. Every time you come back into it, you have regrets about it, and it's not that it's not that you wish you had that item or whatever, but it's just that it you know, again, it's the conversations, the memories of how excited you are when you open a pack when there's a card like that, and then, you know, being on the being on the end of the spectrum that I was, like there are a lot of really cool things that I was responsible for, but it's so exciting for me to personally to pick up a price guide or a magazine or something and see stuff that I created, and different crazy ideas that I had, and you know, like some of the ideas really didn't work. There was one thing we did at Pinnacle called Uncut, which was an uncut sheet sized card. And I don't know if you remember seeing that. It was like these big giant Dufex foil cards. And the way that came about was Michael Cleary came up to us one night and he said, "Okay, I'm closing the door on this room. There's a group of 6 of you. Here's a pizza. Don't come out until you come up with an idea that'll give us $1 million in sales." And so we bounced around a bunch of different ideas, and I said, you know, one of my favorite things as a collector is if I can ever get my hands on an uncut sheet. That's like so cool. But like I had uncut sheets up in my wall, and I just thought that was the coolest thing you could get. And I don't you don't even see uncut sheets around anymore, but back then every now and then you would. And so the idea evolved, and a lot of us kind of, you know, added our own little ingredients into the recipe, and we came up with this uncut sheet-sized card that would be like every kid would have this in their bedroom if they were a collector or fan. And I remember living in Frisco, Texas, and I'm walking the dog, and walk by this house, and I just glanced in the window. Oh, you got one. There we go. And a mask. Of course, the masks were popular. I can't quite see which mask that is. Is that a Patrick Waugh?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, the Van Beesbrook one in that was really popular. And I'm just walking down our street, and there's this kid. Yeah, that's the Van Beesbrook there, the Panthers. That's so cool. And he's got a Frank Thomas baseball Pinnacle uncut above his bed, and he has no curtains on his room. And I'm walking on the street, and I'm looking right into his room, and I'm seeing that, and I just thought, wow, that's so cool. Like I came up with that idea, and here's a kid down the street, has no idea who I am. I have no idea who he is, and he's got that product. Like that's a real rush when you go through that as a guy developing products. And the thing with Pinnacle Uncut is that they did a market. Pinnacle always had a market survey company where they'd go show up at a mall and they'd ask people randomly, "Hey, what do you think of this product?" Whatever. And they determined that at $19.99, this was a slam dunk, because this would replace the sports poster. Like, it was so cool. Well, what happened was it was so well received that some of the executives at Pinnacle thought, well, if it'll sell for $19.99, let's put it out at $29.99. And of course, once they jumped that threshold, it killed it. And so it was like we tried to go do too much with it, and so the product was still fairly successful, but it wasn't what it could have been. And right around the same time, Totally Certified came out. That was one of my products, and Totally Certified was the first product in the hobby with every card serial numbered. And
Dave
was,
has
what's that? There you go.
And Dave has quite a few of those too.
Yeah, so that's a gold. So that's numbered at a 30, right?
25.
25. Okay, and nice. And yeah, so there was a blue and a red and a gold, and that was that product did extremely well for us. And then when I went to Collector's Edge, we came up with a product. Well, Ted Creeder came with me. We both went to Collector's Edge, and I remember sitting there with Ted, and he was telling me we need a Totally Certified like product, because there wasn't really one like that on the market at the time. So we took Totally Certified concept and we added some twists to it, some special cards and some inserts and some autographs, and produced that for Collector's Edge, and it was Masters, and it sold out. Like to imagine a Collector's Edge product selling out was fantastic. And Collector's Edge, because we were selling them on Shop at Home, Don West was our sales guy there, and he had a field day selling those because he was selling a box of Masters plus a Peyton Manning autograph for $99. And he sold them all night long, and the phones wouldn't stop ringing. Collector's Edge. There's one story I want to tell you about with them. I'm going to play a little show and tell with you first because you know that I'm an Expos fan. This actually here, when you talk about the signatures are really faded, but this is a ball autographed by the entire 1969 Expos in their first year. But the autographs are in black ballpoint pen and they're extremely faded. But that's sort of a, as a collector, it's not a card, but it's like one of my most favorite pieces of memorabilia. I collect oddball jerseys. Like I have a Tim Tebow Mets jersey, but I have this Expos jersey, and it's number 12. And if anybody remembers the 1994 draft, the Expos drafted a catcher named Tom Brady, and I don't know if anybody out there knew he was drafted by the Expos as a catcher or not. Some people know about that. But when we did in 2000, we were doing Collector's Edge Supreme, which was the first set out of the year. And what would happen is Players Inc. would give us lists of rookies we could use in our set. And this set even came out before the draft because Shop and Home wanted us to be the first set on the market so that they could sell the crap out of it. And so we were getting these updated lists of rookies we could use. And we had room in our set for 30 rookies, the way that we set the printing forms up. And they were serial numbered, the rookies to 2000. And we're going through our list, and we needed to fill one more spot. And Tom Brady wasn't even on our list. All the scouting reports on him was that he was non-athletic, would not make the NFL. Meanwhile, the Montreal Expos were saying publicly that as soon as he gets cut from the Patriots, we're going to sign him, and he's going to be the best catcher since Gary Carter that this franchise has ever had. Like they projected him as an all-star when they drafted him. So our photo editors matching names with photos, and we had room for one more player. And I said, what about that quarterback from Michigan, the baseball player, Tom Brady? Do we have any photos of him? Oh yeah, we got lots of great photos because we have a photographer in Detroit that like shot a lot of Michigan games. And so we had this great photo of Tom Brady. And I remember telling her, well, great, because this guy's probably not going to make the NFL, but if he becomes a Major League Baseball all-star, we'll have his first rookie card, and like that'll be like the greatest thing because when all these baseball fans want to find this rare Tom Brady football card, we'll have made it. So that's how Tom Brady got in the set and got his first card made. And of course, we're thinking like, on the depth chart there was like Drew Bledsoe, Michael Bishop was the rookie everybody was talking about. I think Giovanni Carmazzi might have been there. Like there were a lot of guys. Tom Brady was like the number 5 guy when camp started, and then just worked his way up over a couple of years. And then once he made it, everybody went back looking for all of his rookies. But the only reason that his first rookie card was made was because he was projected to be an all-star catcher in the major leagues, and so it's kind of funny how some things in the hobby are very accidental, like the Patrick Kane sitting on his dad's lap, or the Menendez brothers, or whatever. You get these little fluky incidents where something like that really catches.
So talk more about your list from Pinnacle to Collector's Edge, and how you got to Collector's Edge there.
I only heard part of that, but talk about going to Collector's Edge, or just some of the experiences there.
Yeah, talk about like going to Collector's Edge and some of your experiences there that you had.
It was very different. I mean, I grew up. My dad was a publisher. I grew up in a small business family, and Collector's Edge was very much operated like a small business, and we were very versatile. Um, Kurt Warner became very popular in 1999, and because of the way our company was structured, we were able to get the first autographed Kurt Warner card out on the market. All the other companies took months and months and months to do things, and that's what I experienced at Pinnacle. Upper Deck Fleer tops were the same thing, but at Collector's Edge, if we wanted to do something, we just did it. And there were three guys that worked together, making the decisions together, and we reacted extremely quickly. And so Collector's Edge was able to do a lot of really innovative things, and we actually produced. We had figured out Alan was really funny, Alan Lewis, because he was not in the least a sports fan. Great guy, and we'd work shows together, and we went to the Super Bowl together and stuff like that. But he wasn't really, he's just a guy that was into other things. He wasn't a big sports fan. So he really leaned on us and relied on myself and on Ted to kind of steer the company in a direction that collectors would really get. And Ted, before he went to Pinnacle, had a long time career at Topps, so he was very savvy as far as what worked in the hobby, and he had incredible relationships with distributors and salespeople. So Collector's Edge, and then we did a lot of work with Ken Golden. So we would produce special cards to be autographed that would never make it into products, but they would be value added. So we had a deal with Ryan Leaf and Peyton Manning where they would, I think we got 10,000 autographs of both. So when we were putting TV packages together for Shop and Home, it would be, a box of this or two boxes of this plus it was always plus an autograph. And the autograph cost us $12, but it had a value of maybe 50, 60, 70. If you're buying two boxes of cards plus this autograph for $99, but in your mind you're getting $300 worth of stuff, we can sell that all day long. And Ryan Leaf is funny because everybody in the hobby will say, well, he's the biggest bust in the hobby's history, but to the manufacturers, Ryan Leaf was not a bust, because when you've got to understand that all of the products from the companies were ordered and sold and purchased before Ryan Leaf tanked. So we've got a product coming out in September. Well, we're doing all our pre-orders in June and July, and we've got Ryan Leaf on our packaging. Ryan Leaf's a big deal at that point. It wasn't until the end of the season that people finally figured out, hey, maybe this guy isn't going to make it, or give him another year. And even Peyton Manning as a rookie, what were the Colts that year? 3-13 maybe. Like they were not good, and Peyton Manning struggled through a ton of interceptions. So you've got to give guys some time to season. Like not everybody can step in and be a superstar as a rookie, especially at that position. Ryan Leaf just never evolved, and he was given up on. He's a great commentator now, but it's like you feel bad for him, but he drove sales. So we had these things that we could do at Collector's Edge that nobody else could do, and then we did a lot of creative things like Edge Graded, with a graded card in every pack, which is being done now. But I mean, a lot of people in the hobby now would never have known that Collector's Edge did that before anybody else. We had a lot of autographs. We did. Alan came up with this idea at the Super Bowl to have. We had a photographer there, and we were getting prints made, and he had this machine that could, with a generic card back, we could actually print one-of-one cards. And what we would do is if we had 500 different photos that we could use and put onto cards, that was 500 one-of-ones we put into. And I don't remember which product we did that in, but it was the Super Bowl that Denver and Atlanta played in. We had these one-of-one cards made, and it was who else has been able to do something like that? I've never seen that done before. whereas the card back, this is an authentic one of one. It didn't have details of the card or anything, but on the front of the card, like that was a legit one of one. So we were able to sort of identify hobby trends and react to them a little quicker than somebody like Pinnacle could have, or even Fleer or Upper Deck. So it was a lot of fun working there, and it was a kind of a crazy, nasty time at that company. We had like while all this was going on, Columbine happened, which was a really ugly thing. A couple of months before that, Alan and I were going to work one morning, and there was a body in the dumpster beside our back door. That was like a homeless addict or whatever. We don't really know the story, but it's like, a couple of kind of crazy things like that happened. We had an employee commit suicide, which was a really dark time. So Collector's Edge was going through. The people working there were going through a 6-month stretch that was almost unbearable emotionally. That all this crazy stuff was going on, but Alan held everything together and did a remarkable job for managing the relationship with Shop at Home and the pressures put on him. And Shop at Home was a publicly traded company, so it was. I joked about Shop at Home because when I went there, the shares were worth like $30, and when I left, they were worth $2. And I had a stock option, so my stock option was literally worth minus $250,000. By the time I left, it was so funny. But Shop at Home was funny because every they had these hanging scoreboards like a NASDAQ thing, and it always showed our stock price. And every time our stock price went up a certain amount, all these bells would ring, and this woman pushing a cart with a big cake with candles on it would appear, and it was a big celebration because our stock value went out. And then if the stock value went down, all of a sudden you'd hear people being called in the intercom and given cardboard boxes to empty their spaces out. It was always like you had an axe hanging over your head at that place, because when their stock value went down, they had to show their investors that we're doing something about it, so they'd fire a bunch of people. And it was like, you always felt pretty scared there. But I mean, it was again a very different experience in Pinnacle. But I split my weeks between Denver at Collector's Edge and Nashville at Shop at Home. So it was a really neat experience. And again, you learn a lot. And when Saturday Night Live pokes fun at you, then you're doing something right. So, but a fun place to work. And I miss all the guys that I worked with, because it was there's one story from Collector's Edge that was kind of funny. We all have phobias, and this is awful for me to admit, but I was going through a time where I had a phobia of little people, and it was because there was a little person in where I grew up, and he kind of terrorized me as a kid. Like when I was I don't mean a kid like a teenager. I mean like as a 2 or 3 year old, and I had this phobia. So Vern Troyer comes into Shop at Home, mini me, because we're selling Macs, and Vern Troyer and the big tall guy, the 7-foot something Chinese guy that played in the NBA at that time.
Yao Ming.
Yeah, they were doing the Mac commercials. So Vern Troyer came in to do. Vern came in to do this promotion for Macs, because we were selling Macintoshes at Shop at Home, and the guys that I worked with told him that, okay, this Canadian guy that works with us, he's got like a phobia of little people, so like mess with him, okay? So they told Vern Troyer to mess with me, and he comes in and he's a little bit rough around the edges, and so he says hi to me, and he knows I'm a little bit kind of like, just I was a little intimidated, and and I don't know why. I'm like 6'2", 240, like I should be fine. But he comes up to me and he says, "So you're the Canadian?" And I said, "Yeah." He says, "I effing hate Canadians, every effing one of them. And you know who I hate the most? Mike effing Myers. Because every time we're trying to shoot a scene, he had to leave the set and go watch his effing Leafs play. And I effing hate the Leafs because I'm a Red Wings fan. And Gordie Howe's my guy." And he just went on this tirade, cussing and swearing at me for like probably 3 solid minutes. And we were at one end of the room, and by the time we were done, I was backed into the previous corner, and he's like ranting at me, like pointing at me, and my heart rate is at about like 210. I'm just going nuts. And these guys that I worked with were just laughing their heads off, thinking it was the funniest thing ever. So anyway, I'm over my phobia, and it's embarrassing to say it because it sounds really discriminatory and unfair, and I apologize for that. But it's just, that was a real thing that I struggled with, but the little things, anywhere you work, you have these little fun things that go on, and with this one, it was that was one of the things that happened at Collector's Edge and Shop at Home. And again, apologies if anybody's offended by that story. It's not meant to be, but it was just how funny Vern Troyer was once he knew and he was messing with me. And yeah, he really got me. I nearly peed myself. I was so taken back from it. So good for him. And then he had a great career. He's in the Harry Potter movies. He was one of the wizards, or one of the bank tellers, and then his career with the Austin Powers movies. So, but yeah, those were some fun times. We had some really good. And Don West, you talk about, and I don't know if you guys remember Don West or if you've seen him on the internet, or you probably watched him on TV. Don was like, I've never seen anybody like this, and he was able to, like at Shop at Home, they would have like 3 different stages with their tables with products on them, and he would move from one to the other, and then as he moves to the next one, somebody comes and sets up the next one. So there were 3 rotating things, and he's talking about a product, giving all the sales pitches. Meanwhile, the camera's on the product. Somebody's talking in his ear, say this, say this, say this. And he does it. He's listening and talking without missing a beat. And at the same time, he's clicking on a laptop, seeing how many dollars per second we're making on each product. And then once he sees it hits, this isn't selling, or it hits below a level, or it plateaus and it's going down, he's like, okay, well, let's look at the next one. And then he goes right to the next one, and the cameras follow him. And same thing. It's like to see a guy be able to do that. Is Don academically a genius? Probably not. But for somebody to be able to process and do 3 things at the same time, I've never seen anybody be able to do that in my life. Like he was incredible what he could do. And when he was on the air, or if it was another person, they had other salesmen there. For like, if Don was on, we would sell 5 times what we would if anybody else was a salesman there. So that was pretty cool to work with him. Now you said you're a Broncos fan, right? So here's something really cool. This is one of my favorite Pinnacle cards, and this is let's see if I can get it without the light shining. Now that's John Elway from the Oneonta Yankees, from 19. Trying to remember what year this was. This was from the mid '80s at Pinnacle. Got this photo and made this card. But have you ever seen that one?
No.
And this is one that I don't even remember. There is a Broncos logo on it, so it would have been, and it's the new Broncos logo, not the old one. So I think they would have made this in about '97, because it's the current logo. I think they switched to that logo in '97 from the old D with the horse in it. But I remember, I don't even remember how I got this card, but I just thought that's the coolest thing, when you can, like, who else would have a John Elway Yankees card? of cool. So,
But a lot of people don't realize that he was a 2-player athlete too.
yeah, and I mean he was projected to be a star, and it's funny because he was a shortstop, and I remember he played in the New York Penn League, and I used to go to a lot of New York Penn League games as a kid because I was in the area I grew up in, and I remember that Cal Ripken and John Elway were both sort of revolutionary because there had never been big shortstops before, and they were like the two guys that were going to change the position because they were big players, and then nobody at that time knew how, I mean Elway was projected as an NFL player, but then as time went on, it was clear that he was going to become a number 1 or number 2 pick, and now to see a 6'4" shortstop is not unusual at all. Like it's kind of common. Well, Alex Rodriguez was a shortstop. He was a big guy when he first came up, and so yeah, it's funny how people change their positions in games. So. Yeah, so I don't know. It's been I look back at the 3 companies and that I've worked for, and I think Pacific was my favorite place to work. We were able to do some really cool things there, and Mike Kramer was just an incredible guy to work for. Treated everyone like family. Mike and I are still friends, and we communicate on Facebook a lot. And we actually went through cancer treatments and chemo at the same time, so we were always communicating during that process. And so that's you make these relationships in the hobby, and to be able to keep them is really cool. The funny thing about being diagnosed with cancer is like have you guys ever like Googled your birthday to see what famous athletes are on your birthday? Like I was born on the same day as Branch Rickey. I always thought that was really cool. I'm not the same year, obviously. He's a little older than me. But have you guys ever Googled your birthday to see like, okay, what pro star? So yeah, I think everybody's done it. So when I was diagnosed with cancer, which is multiple myeloma, which is a bone marrow plasma cancer, it's rare. And so the first thing I did was I Googled it. It's like, okay, did any celebrities get this? And it's like, the first thing I see is Don Baylor died of multiple myeloma. And I was like, Don Baylor had this? Like, that's so cool. I got the same cancer Don Baylor had. Like, that's awesome. And so it's kind of funny how you process things and whatever. But yeah, when Mike was going through it, it's funny how something like that kind of makes you reconnect with somebody. But all's good. So.
And we're reaching that 2-hour mark. I don't know if you want to wrap up, and hopefully down the road we can get you back on, because I know for me, and I'll speak for the rest of the guys, this has been fucking enjoyable to tell. This is the stuff that we live for. I mean, I would put CDs of this, if this was on a CD, in my car and just listen, because then I could listen and then talk to myself about the conversation, because it brings you back.
Well, thanks for saying that, and again, I mean, if I offended anybody with my Bruce Troyer story, I really apologize. No offense, Mac, but how
not here, Jeff.
But yeah, I mean, and it's really fun to relive some of these memories and moments, and it's funny as you start telling a story about 3 other ones pop into your mind, and that's what's so great about it. But it was a really exciting time. It's almost offensive that it's considered the junk wax era, because I think that the products made at that time were the best products ever. They're just a victim of there we go. Just a victim of that's a Dufex. Is that Pinnacle Zenith?
Yep.
Barry Sanders. Yeah. So Dufex, that technology, what the Dufex is we got this technology. A company in France did it for us, and this was their technology, and it's actually like a wax finish, and it would take 8 weeks to do a card set. So we'd have to, so that's why we always made that product an end of the season product, so that we could get kind of current uniforms, current players, because the production took so long on that. And it was a really expensive thing to do. And that's the one thing, Pinnacle spent a lot of money on technology, but had we invested that money into jerseys and autographs, because at the end of the day, you can put as much technology as you can into a card, and it's worth $1. And if you have a 12-point paper stock with a minimal one color foil stamp, that card's $1 too. So the price guides never took into account the amount of technology in a card when they came up with value. It was sort of like they'd look at the price point of the packs, because it was all formula driven, and I know the guys at Beckett then would deny it, but we spent so much money on stuff like that, and we didn't get a return for it, and that's one of the problems. When I said that people at the company at Pinnacle weren't collectors, they didn't really understand it. They just assumed that if they spent twice as much money on production, that cards would be worth twice as much as the other one. That wasn't the case. I remember when right at the beginning of my time there, jersey cards were just becoming a big thing. They were making Upper Decks cards explode in value, and I put a proposal out to Pinnacle to buy a Lou Gehrig jersey and cut it up, and it's like, why not? I mean, they're like, that's sacrilegious. We could never do that. Everyone would hate us. Our company would be tarnished forever. And it's like, now, I mean, nobody would think twice about cutting up a Ted Williams or Babe Ruth or Joe DiMaggio or Lou Gehrig jersey. I mean, Ty Cobb jersey, whatever they can get their hands on, they'll cut up and make cards of. And it's just too bad Pinnacle wasn't bold enough. And that goes back to your question. Was there anything they said no to? That's the one thing they said no to. I wanted to kind of go all the way and like, okay, if we're going to do jersey cards, let's do it right. Let's go find a Howie Morin's 1935 Montreal Canadiens jersey, or a George Vezina Montreal Canadiens from 1915. Or like, let's really go all the way. And nobody was willing to take that chance because they were afraid that the hobby just would go bananas if somebody destroyed a relic like that. And now, I mean, no one would think twice if something like that happened. So yeah, it's funny how now people's, I don't want to say their expectations, but their acceptance level is completely different as to what it was then. So, but that would have been cool to have a Lou Gehrig jersey. That would have turned Pinnacle around, but nobody was willing to. Pinnacle didn't have the balls to do it back then. I bet they would now, looking back.
Well, we're going to respect Jeff Swiss's wishes that, and hopefully again they'll come back, and we got Pacific to go. We got Pacific, so there's another episode.
Pacific is worth an episode because there was so many great things done, and I mean, if you can ever get Mike Kramer to come on, boy, he's got some incredible stories too, from some of the stuff that he went through. And I actually, when I was a little kid, it was so cool to work for Mike Kramer and then become close friends with him, because when I was a kid, I actually bought mail order stuff from him. He was a fisherman, and he was buying cases of tops and hand collating baseball card sets, and I bought a whole bunch of stuff from him when I was a kid, and sure enough, I ended up working for the guy. It was kind of a special thing. But yeah, Pacific was a company that shouldn't have had to go away. Football pulled their license in a knee-jerk reaction. There used to be an industry conference in Hawaii every year that Kit Young ran, and a bunch of dealers were complaining to Gene Upshaw about how there were too many football products. And at lunchtime, he came and somebody from Players Inc. came and they told us, well, you're not going to make football cards anymore. There's too many companies. You guys drew the bottom. You guys drew the small straw. That's we figured you're the one that's easiest to get rid of. It was that blunt. And all of a sudden, that industry, there's Mike and myself and Phil Roth, who's our CFO. The three of us sat there for a day looking at the company to figure out who we were going to keep and who we were going to lay off. And all based on one guy's reaction to a group of dealers telling him there's too many products to carry in football. So things like that, that were some of the darker things that happened, but a lot of the things that happened at Pacific, like we did things like a bobblehead doll in every box. We did some incredible die cut work, some incredible design work, and the one thing that Mike did that none of the other companies did was Mike was a lifelong collector. Mike has a T206. Mike is a huge collector, has an incredible collection, and he understands collecting from that standpoint. So integrity of the hobby was first and foremost with him, whereas I don't think it was at any of the other companies back then. And I really liked the way that they operated and they did everything. And it was just a fun place to work where, he treated everybody like his own family, and it was just an amazing experience. And, there's a guy that when he was out of the industry, that was one of the biggest losses the hobby could ever have had was losing a guy like him, because he was just a guy that had so much wisdom and knowledge and integrity, and just saw things at a different level than most people did. But yeah, I'd love to talk about Pacific because it was an incredible place.
Because we will definitely. Again, like I said, this is our wheelhouse. This podcast is basically just like a storytelling. When we get people that are in the industry, in the business, in our wheelhouse, to tell us stories from the time, you're always welcome.
Well, thanks very much. And since you're David Archer, I should have wore CFL stuff. But
I got my.
There you go. Hey, there you go. I'm watching the game right now. They're ahead of the Blues 4-1. But yeah, it's now David Archer, I think played in Ottawa in CFL. When I know he bounced around a little bit, but I think he was in Ottawa for a year or two. But yeah, we actually did CFL cards at Pacific too. That was for me that was really fun, because that was my dream as a kid was to be on a CFL card. And I didn't get to be on one, but I took photos for them and made them, so that was almost as good. So, yeah. So anyway, thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it. And,
absolutely, gentlemen.
Hope your listeners respond well to this. Brings back some memories for some of the older people.
And just again, the knowledge you gave, it's a look that we don't normally get. And I know we all love listening to it. That's why everybody's been here in the chat, and everybody, if they watch down the road in the archive, again, it's a lot of information you don't see out there right now, because it's always you want to pump whatever the newest, the latest, the greatest. That stuff always for us is going to be back in the 90s, in the early 2000s. That'll be the latest. That'll be the greatest. That'll be the best.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Thanks again for having me. It was a lot of fun. The time went by pretty quick.
Thanks for joining.
Yeah, thank you for coming on.
No problem. Anytime.
I'll
Sounds
hold it.
Yeah. Thank you, Jeff. Have a good rest of your evening.
Okay, thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take care.
So many questions left.
You'll actually have to leave, Jeff. By the way, you'll have to exit out.
Oh, do it? Okay.
Yeah.
So you guys can talk about how bad I was, and
No.
I don't know how do I exit out?
The first thing I said was, "How many questions do I have left for him?"
we're actually going to wrap up not long here before too long. I just didn't want you to sit here and think that, because we can remove you from the stream, but you're actually still here, and you probably don't want to hear us talk.
All right, I see the Leave Studio thing now here. So, okay, thanks again, guys. I'll talk to you later. Okay.
Take care.
Thanks.
All right.
The nerve levels.
That was freaking awesome. I just I'm sitting back here just listening, and that's one of the main reasons why I said what I did. It's like, give him a platform just to sit there and reminisce and talk about things that other people aren't privy to hear. We've had good shows in the past and good conversation, but by far this was the best experience and went better than what I could have ever imagined. And I can't wait to have him back because
I say this was the Pinnacle.
Yes, you can. You can use that for sure. You can use that nomenclature 100%. And you can even say it, and I won't send you a bill. But that was just freaking awesome. And, you could tell everybody in the chat was just enjoying the conversation. Everybody was intently listening and, just soaking in all the stories and everything else along those lines. And, I hope definitely we get them back. Like you said, we're going to hold them to it because, we always talk about Pacific and, the level of ingenuity and the creativity was, way above the curve. And I hate the fact of what ultimately caused their demise from the football world. But, at the same time, how else are we going to be privy to something like that? I mean, we now understand what ultimately happened to Pacific football and why they were basically kicked out of the space. And, when you lose one of the major sports, it's definitely going to have a negative impact on the future of what they're able to do. So that was freaking awesome, man.
Yeah, that's. Go ahead, Vinny.
I said I didn't even get to ask him. Like when I was watching the previous interview he did, and he said something about Donruss being in the same building and under. I'm like, huh? I'm like, wait a minute, wait, well, ho, so many questions. So you're telling me Donruss and Leaf, because Leaf,
Donruss Leaf playoff,
yeah, were all together, and Pinnacle was what? So you're telling me in the same building. So you basically had Tops, Upper Deck, Fleer, and you had Pinnacle. Yeah, so it would have been Pinnacle, Donruss, Leaf, playoff. And they were all together. So that only leaves what, Dave? Parkhurst, hockey-wise?
But that I think the time was under Upper Deck.
It eventually it marked it as Upper Deck.
When they came back in like 90...
91, 92.
I don't think it was then.
No. I think
somebody else. I don't know if that was Kramer that had it then, and then like 94, 5 or 5, 6.
Yeah.
I think that's when Upper Deck
bought him.
Yeah, or they bought him like the year before, and then they transformed it in from that, like the side where you had the side bar where the name was, and like the Parkhurst logo is the green foil.
Yep.
Then you start to get to like the etching that Upper Deck, quote unquote, made famous, like the
Yep.
Black Diamond brand, and so yeah, you had the Upper Deck, and then you would have had Tops, and then Fleer, but I think Fleer at the time too, because they had the Pix set, that 96, 97.
Yeah.
They were sort of working hand in hand there on that, and I think, yeah, you had Ultra. I think 96, 7 was the last year until whatever.
Yep.
Until what Upper Deck
Bottom.
bought the entity or whatever of Fleer. So when you have playoff or Donruss League playoff, obviously not doing hockey other than that game in like 95, 6, but in the football space, in the baseball space, and then you have Pinnacle Score, and you're basically roommates or bunkmates. It's like, it's just an interesting to hear that, because like you said in the previous interview he was on, that nothing was like, well, hold on a minute, this is interesting, because you always think it's gonna be like a wrestling match. It's that ladder match. It's Upper Deck versus Tops versus DLP versus Pinnacle Score versus Fleer. Who's gonna get the title belt? And now you're saying people are working together. Or you're like, hey, check out what we got coming out. Oh, that's pretty cool. Well, here's what we got. Well, that's hold the phone.
Exactly.
But that's how DLP got some of the names, though. It became Leaf certified.
Mm-hmm.
So and what people probably don't think about, because everybody talks about certified, and it being under the Leaf name, Pinnacle's who brought it to the market first.
Have you guys sold all the puppies now?
So it puts things in a different perspective, that's for sure. And you're only going to get that with somebody who has knowledge of being in the industry.
Oh,
So many questions.
and then dog had a second litter, and I'm like, no.
We'll have him
what are you
back.
talking about?
We'll have him
She
back.
was like, she posted
I know.
something about
Yeah,
another
the first show was out of the way, and like the Titanic full of nerves are, I won't say forever gone, but I mean I hope I don't feel like as nervous as I felt like pretty much the whole week coming up to this. Again, he said he wasn't starstruck by players or celebrities or whatnot. It's like, I don't think I get starstruck, but just the nervousness of not coming off as a dolt and like asking this stuff. And I'm like, I don't want to have much to do with this. I know you said you don't want to have much to do with like the interruptions, quote unquote, for the show. You wanted just to let him storytell. That's, again, like, we got questions. Obviously, it's not like we haven't been collecting for more than 2 years. We have a lot of stuff that we'd like to know, but at the same time, you know what I'd like to know more? And I'll speak for you two and probably everybody in the chat. We want to hear the experiences, because we're not working at the tower. We're not working with Kenny Gold and Don West and watching him swim in the 5,000 box of cards that he dumps over with Eddie Lewis in the show that is right after the Quintana knife show. We're not there for these. We're not with Mike Kramer coming up with stuff and getting told at the Kit Young conference. I think that was in January. Hey, you guys are gone. See ya.
Yeah, that sucks. But on the flip side, it makes sense as to why they, huge splash, and then all of a sudden they were gone, because that's not normal information that's like really put out to non-hobby insiders. If you think about it, if you're not in the space or don't have any sort of connections within that part of the space, the normal everyday collector, unless they know people, aren't going to know.
No.
The golden age. You could buy a katana sword at $9.05 and 3 boxes of Fleer at $10.05.
Collector's age.
That's what you call whatever it would be. Where can you do that today? Nowhere.
No, because I know even like QVC would sell maybe the classic, the NFL Experience set.
Yeah, they were the classic.
You got one sort of, I remember the one year, it might have been 95. You had the insert set with like the foil stamping on the bottom corner. But they weren't spending much time going through it. This was Don West busting packs. I remember him busting packs and saying, again, grading wasn't a thing, but I'm like, there's no gem mints in this. When he's busting, he's holding that thing on the side. It's like shooting a bow and arrow. He's pulling that pack, and just like, I don't know, like a kid that's never seen cards before that just is like beyond enamored with them. But you didn't see that unbridled excitement that most of us felt at that time when we busted packs, when we traded with friends, when we went to a show, we went to our brick and mortar. And that's the selling point of all that stuff. As over the top as he was, it was still a lot. If he was 120%, we were all between like 65 and maybe like 80% of that. We weren't going to be like yelling at you to go buy cards and, folks, who's going to get them? Are you on the phone, Kenny? No, I mean, that if we had the funds somehow, shape, form, fashion, somebody actually listened to us and bought us a box of cards for our birthday, or Christmas, whatever the occasion may be, it was like you transformed into Don West. You want to talk about breakers? There's your original breaker. Let that marinate on the internet machine for a while, and again, you're not buying into something, but he's breaking the cards for you. He's showing you what you can get.
Yep.
So and I'd like to hear some more if he's got more stories with Donnie West, because I met Don West. I'm not stepping on toes, and I'm doing experiences there. It's like I met Don West at a TNA show in I think 2008 or 2009 in Bemidji. And that was the thing I said to him. He said, "Oh, you a big wrestling fan?" I'm like, "I'm a huge wrestling fan, but I want a blue chip box right now. I want my guaranteed Mark McGuire Gem Man 10. And he fucking was cackling. He's like, "I get that a lot." And I'm like, I loved watching you and Eddie just sit there and talk cards, because there wasn't anywhere you could do that. You weren't looking on the internet for that. It was still, like Jeff said, you get to the high school age, chicks, car, you get a job, and you just have money for that stuff. You wanted to put that where all these breakers and all these people going to the card shows now are at, in their moms and dads' basements, because you don't want it to be seen. This was like sort of the faux pas. You want to get a chick? Well, what do you do? What hobbies do you have? I buy baseball cards. Well, you're not getting laid. Like, fuck that. You go to the library, Poindexter, and sit in the corner and read your fantasy novels. No, your cards. No, that's not acceptable. So when you see this on TV, you see a guy that's, again, not some stallion, busting cards, getting super excited. It's showing you that the passion that you have, completely acceptable. Again, no matter how over the top Don West is. I won't say he was a role model. I won't say that. He was somebody that you could look at and be like, hey, he doesn't care if he looks like a jackass on TV selling this stuff. He's selling it, and people, again, I don't think they're going through it as quickly as he might be saying, but at the same time, you know they're not going to put on TV without selling it. And a good chunk of them. Yes, I realize there's going to be like 91 Fleer vending cases pretty much littered throughout every 4-row box is like a lot of your main cards. Will they put 100 stars in there? Yeah, a lot of those will be Darrell Evans, who was a star at the time, but a forgotten name. But yeah, that'd be one I'd like to. I don't. I think he's still scuffling with the cancer stuff, but I'd love to have him on. That's like dreaming real big, but I mean, like get a conglomeration of these folks and just be like, "Have at her, guys!" So it's listening. It's story time. I'm perfectly content to not say a word the whole time, and you guys just
Soapbox extend for that group. And just, hey, you know what? Our show is your show this evening.
yeah.
Have at it. There is nothing off limits here. Just go with it.
Roll, boys. Don West, Kramer, and Jeff together.
No, got to get Kenny Golden in there too. Got to have them all because that's the prime era.
Yeah, I don't know if we could get Kenny Golden, but that would
Kenny, it's one of those in which Ken likes to talk cards, and yeah, he has a busy schedule, but it's one of those in which anything's a possibility if approached in the right way. It's not. I don't want this to turn into every other interview show. We've said that before.
Mhm.
But, to have that type of conversation and interaction to where it's, like I said, it's unscripted. It's, there's nothing off limits here. If you want to tell a story, tell a story. If you don't. We can help kind of guide part of the conversation, but the whole objective is to sit there and really give you the floor and say what you want when you want it, share what you want. It doesn't matter. And, you can tell Jeff loves talking about this stuff.
Mhm.
And just to sit back and listen to him go on multiple stories, because like he said, you talk about one and then you think about 3 others.
Mhm.
And, just to let him just talk about it. We're all sitting here, and I'm speaking for you two as well. I don't want to say we're sitting here in awe, but it's like this is ultimately kind of what we were really hoping for to a degree. Is just really give him the floor and give him an opportunity to share what he wanted to share at that point in time. But something really struck me is, and it's amazing that here we are, we have him on the show.
I'm hoping you're going to say what I'm thinking.
And what does he talk about?
Yep.
Building their relationships. Now, how fucking awesome is that? And no, folks, that was not scripted. That was completely off the cuff. And, I wanted to say it during the show while he was there. But I'm like, you know what? I don't want to take away from it because I want that to resonate. I want that to be something that people go back and watch in the archives and say, you know what? This really is a thing. That it is all about forming the relationships within the hobby. Whether you're in the collector space as we are, or for somebody, him being actually with the manufacturer and everything else along those lines. It says something. That is also one of his driving forces, and the fact that he still talks to these people 20, 30 years later. That's, I mean, I don't know the right word to use, but I mean, it's almost like vindication to a degree that, we talk about it all the time, and knowing that somebody who's actually in the space or in that part of the space, that's how he lived his career, so to speak. That's freaking awesome.
And remember, he came here as a guest the first time. Second time he comes back, he's part of the IRP family. Thank
He's
you, better
got
half.
He's got a point, and I know she can't hear me, but we'll leave it at that.
Hey, I call it like I see it.
But Dave, we are coming up on the 2.5 hour mark. Didn't know if you wanted to go ahead and wrap it up. My brain is still on overload from all that. My brain is gonna need some time to like kind of come down.
Yeah, definitely. Because again, like I said, I've been nervous even just to ask him. Because Steve and Vinny can attest to how long this has been cooking. I've had this for 6-8 months at least, maybe longer.
July 2021.
It's
back.
And it's because you don't want to come off as a pushy person and like, hey, I wanna get in there and come on the show. Come on. It's again building the relationship, building some camaraderie, some back and forth. Didn't even know that it was like the 25th anniversary of him starting at Pinnacle coming up real quick. It's just, I don't want to say satisfying because I don't want to come off as like gloating, but this is what these folks, these hobby, and I'm not going to call them insiders, but these people that have inside knowledge of the hobby, this is the type of platform they need. Not anyone, I won't mention names, but I mean not people cutting them off. Not, again, I show comments and we show comments. We show what people are doing or what they're saying. If somebody came with a question, yeah, we'll run it. We got the question from our buddy Rob, Darth Vader, on Instagram. Happy to get that in a roundabout way. The packaging, just trying to have something different, something that's eye appealing, something that's like, wow, what the hell's going on here? From the traditional cello packs or whatnot. But that's what we've always strived for, no matter if it's on here, if it's on our own channels, if it's in our conversations on phones, if we go on a stream and just be like, hey, let's go talk, not live. Guess what we're doing? The same thing. We're letting people run with the ball. You're not interrupting to put over yourself, to put over somebody else in the comments and like, oh, somebody makes it. No, just let the person, you invite somebody on that has a breadth and a wealth of knowledge. Don't truncate their answers because it's not fitting whatever you have. They're going on what their memories are, what their experiences were. Let them go. Like our good friend Elsa said, let it go.
On their time frame.
Yeah.
Well, and he gave Dave an amount of time that he was available, and Dave, usually it's me who opens the door and, hey, we're coming up on whatever, but I didn't know if that was your thing or if that was Jeff's thing. So it's one of those in which we want to make sure we follow their wishes in that situation. I think given the platform, he would have kept going.
Mm-hmm.
But it's one of those in which you kind of put the ball back in his court and was like, hey, we're coming up on the 2 hour mark. We'd love to be able to talk about Pacific, and you could tell he still wanted to talk,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, you could also kind of tell he was getting a little bit run down at the same time. But the cool thing about it is, he's like, wow, really? I don't feel like it's been that long. He's like, this has been, it's been fun. Thanks for bringing me on. It's like, no, thank you, because you entertained us. You entertained those who stuck around, because, like I said, that you don't get those type of stories.
No.
None of us could freaking fill a 2-hour time frame and actually have fun stories. I mean, we've talked a lot of stuff over the course of the show and stuff and things along those lines, but nothing of that, and I'll call it magnitude. It was thoroughly enjoyable and entertaining to say the least. And this will be one of the shows that I probably go back and watch.
Yeah, I'm not talking much in it up until like this last 20 minutes or whatever. But yeah, that's something where you're going to learn probably something new every time.
Yep.
Or at least for a period of time when you're rewatching it. So
I'll put it on in the bedroom tonight for viewing purposes.
Yeah, that'll go over real well.
You didn't hear me.
That's probably not a bad thing.
I said I'll put the show on for rewatching tonight in the bedroom. Reaction.
I think I heard her say, "Not before I put it on."
Not before she puts it on. She should put it on. She knows how to get there.
No, I know. I mean, she's going to beat you to the punch. She's going to put it on, so when you go to the bedroom, it's already going to be on. Maybe the second time.
Sorry for the least profanity, y'all.
Okay. So, again, thank you for everybody that joined us. If you're watching this again in the archive, I hope you enjoyed it, because, again, these are rare opportunities for us that we don't have our hijinks and our nonsense sort of through the night, which that's what you've grown accustomed to and you love so dearly, right, Eric? So, it's just a fun episode because it's not like a ton of planning went in, but the path to it actually happened. That's, like I said, I'm not a guy that's, if I see a player, I'm like, I'm not going to go chasing autographs. I'm not going to be the fanboy just because I'm guessing that doesn't feel great all the time. Snow feet? How many feet? What? No, but this is 1 foot. Singular. That's feet. So it was just 1 foot, Eric. So on my part, just to get up, I can't find the correct nomenclature. I didn't use it before, so I'm cashing that card in now. To not find it, because it's not the nerve. It's just I've always been of the mindset of I don't want to be a bother to people. So, again, it's like, God, I want to get some of these questions answered, and I want to get some of those stories that were chopped off in the previous interview. I want to have those answers. I want to have the full story. I don't want to be left thinking, what happened next? What happened next? What happened next? No. Well, I'm friends with them on Facebook, so I've talked to him a couple times through there. So it's like, okay, let's get that ball rolling. So yeah, I'm just beyond stoked. I know you guys are too, because we've all been like the school children, giddy. It's like Halloween. It's like we're going trick or treating tonight. So thank you everybody for watching. Same with the archives. You guys are watching, picking up some knowledge, some insanely awesome stories that aren't out there, and if they are, they're not the full stories. You didn't hear much of us tonight, so some of you might be just like cloud nine. Best IRP ever. Remember spending money? Exactly.
Yep.
Send us money one way, shape, form, fashion. And hopefully we'll have more. Hopefully we'll have a couple more. So I think we could get him on as much as we wanted, and as much as he wanted to come on, and you would just to have that forum, like you said, just to have the forum to and know that we like it, that we love this shit. This isn't fucking we're doing this for Discords or AdSense. No, we want to fucking hear this because we truly love this shit. Period. It's the best because we're based a lot on nostalgia. I mean, in like a lot of aspects of life, collecting is pretty much that is what it is. You go back to music, it's like I like some of the new stuff, but then man, even if you didn't like Criss Cross, you're like, oh, fuck, I remember the jump. Oh, here comes Gerardo, Rico Suave. Oh, I do remember that one. Then you're doing a little Skid Row or something, and it's like, or Slaughter, and you hear something of theirs, and it's like, you start thinking like, man, why didn't I like this stuff? It's not something like you're gonna put in the Smithsonian, but you can jump immediately back to a point in your life, good, bad, and different, and be like, oh, I remember that. It's like my music I've been getting, Smashing Pumpkins, Offspring, stuff that's older. That again, I was like, okay, I like it, but I'm not gonna take the time to listen to a ton of it, spend money. We will get to it. See that again. Easter's just what, a month and change away. We don't want to put all of our eggs in one basket. You know what that would be, Paul? We would be opening Pandora's box.
He's watching us right now, and he's like, what do I do?
Yeah, he's like, fuck that. I'm not coming back. You guys are loony bins. Woo.
Well, if you ever watched any of the old shows, because if I'm not mistaken, in some of your messages provided a link to one of the shows or something. Hey, if he watched it, he still came on, so we didn't scare him off.
Either that or you just watched like a couple minutes. It's like, okay, that's enough. I'm good. You watched the show. Oh, God. Do I feel for him?
Good times. Good times.
So with that, send us money. Keep watching. Keep supporting us. It's organic. We're not going to be sitting here with all the other dive. I put on the Instagram post. The one rare one, you'll get this. When he comes back on, it'll be another one. It'll be the same photo, same picture. That's a permanent placeholder. He just messaged me too, so eager to read that. So for the IRP, he's Vinny. That's Steve. I'm Dave. Remember, that's it by Jeff. So it's just not us. There are others out there that think this way. Collecting cards, fucking amazing. The friendships you forge while collecting those cards, it really matters. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.